Democracy, it's a word that gets thrown around a lot. Like a frisbee at a picnic, everyone wants a turn with it. It's a concept that seems simple, yet carries immense weight. We're told it's the best system, the protector of freedom, the great equalizer. It promises a voice to the voiceless and power to the powerless. And on the surface, it sounds pretty good. The idea that everyone gets a say in how things are run is appealing. Who wouldn't want a say in how things are run? The notion of collective decision-making is empowering. But here's the thing about democracy, it's a bit like a used car. Sure, it might look shiny and promising in the brochure, but there's always the chance you're buying someone else's lemon. The exterior can be deceiving. Because the truth is, democracy, in the wrong hands, can go very, very wrong. History is littered with examples of democratic failures. Think of it like this. Democracy gives power to the people. That's the good news. It allows for a diverse range of voices to be heard. The bad news, people can be idiots. And not just occasionally, but often. And sometimes a whole lot of idiots can get together and make really bad decisions. Decisions that can have long-lasting consequences. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying democracy is inherently bad. It has its merits and has brought about significant positive change. It's just that, like any system, it has its flaws. Flaws that can be manipulated and exploited. And if we're not careful, those flaws can be exploited to create something far more sinister than anything a dictator could dream up. The promise of democracy is great, but so is its peril. Let's talk about direct democracy for a second. The idea is simple. Everyone votes on everything. Sounds fair, right? Everyone gets a say, and the majority rules. Well, imagine a world where your neighbor's love of polka music dictates the radio waves, and you have no choice but to listen to it all day. Or their aversion to pants leads to a society full of exposed thighs, making casual Fridays a bit too casual for comfort. That's the potential dark side of direct democracy, the tyranny of the majority. When the majority has absolute power, minority voices can be easily drowned out. It's like a pack of wolves deciding what's for dinner. The majority rules and the minority has to go along with it. Sure, the majority might be cool with eating deer, and they might even think it's the best choice, but what about that lone vegetarian wolf in the corner? He's screwed. His preferences don't matter in the face of the majority's decision. Just because a bunch of people want something doesn't automatically make it right. Majority rule can sometimes lead to unjust outcomes. And let's be honest, most of us don't have the time or energy to become experts on every single issue. We have our own lives to lead, our own jobs to do. That's why we delegate. We elect people to make those decisions for us. We trust them to represent our interests and make informed choices, but that brings us to a whole other set of problems. How do we ensure they truly represent us? How do we hold them accountable? Enter indirect democracy, the system where we elect people to represent our interests. It's like giving your friend your Netflix password. You hope they'll pick shows you'll both enjoy, but there's always the chance they'll binge-watch reality TV while you're stuck with endless reruns of the Great British Baking Show. And in the grand scheme of things, electing a politician can feel a lot like handing over your Netflix password. You hope they'll fight for what you believe in, but there's always the risk they're more interested in cozying up to lobbyists and padding their own pockets. The problem is, power is intoxicating. It's like cheap tequila. One minute you're having a good time, the next minute you're waking up with a sombrero on your head and no memory of how it got there. And once politicians get a taste of power, it can be hard to let go. You know that saying, absolute power corrupts? Absolutely. Well, it's not just a catchy phrase, it's the sad truth of human nature. Give someone even a little bit of power, and it's amazing how quickly it goes to their head. It's like watching a hamster eat a Cheeto cute at first, but eventually it just gets messy. And politicians, they're like hamsters on an all-you-can-eat Cheeto buffet. The more power they accumulate, the more out of touch they become with the people they're supposed to represent. Section 5. The velvet chains of soft totalitarianism. Now, I know what you're thinking, John. This all sounds very doom and gloom. Are you saying we're all doomed to live under the thumb of tyrannical overlords? Well, not necessarily. You see, the real danger to democracy these days isn't some jackbooted thug kicking down your door at midnight. It's much more insidious than that. It's a creeping, almost invisible force that slowly tightens its grip. It's what we call soft totalitarianism. Unlike the hard, overt oppression of the past, this new form is subtle. Think of it like this. Imagine a world where you're technically free to do whatever you want, but the government subtly nudges you in a certain direction. They don't need to use force, they use influence. Maybe they control the information you see, filtering out dissenting voices and promoting their own agenda. Or make it difficult to disagree with the official narrative. They create an environment where dissent is discouraged. It's like being in a relationship with someone who constantly forgets to unload the dishwasher. Sure, you're not technically being forced to do it, but the pressure is there. It's a subtle coercion. But you end up doing it anyway because it's easier than the alternative. This is the essence of soft totalitarianism. It's a system that relies on psychological manipulation rather than physical force. It shapes our thoughts and behaviors, and the scariest part, most people don't even realize it's happening. They think they're making their own choices, but in reality, their choices are being subtly guided by unseen hands. This is the velvet chain that binds us. Section 6, crushing the seeds of dissent. And here's the really scary part. Soft totalitarianism doesn't just happen overnight. It creeps up on you slowly, like that weird smell in your fridge. You know something's off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. One minute you're debating politics with your friends over a pint of beer. The next minute you're afraid to say what you really think for fear of being labeled a dissident. And that's the whole point of soft totalitarianism. To make you censor yourself before the government has to do it for you. Section 7, the slow boil of subjugation. The thing about a slow boil is that you don't realize how hot the water is until you're already cooked. And that's the danger of soft totalitarianism. By the time you realize what's happening, it's already too late. The government has slowly eroded your freedoms, and you've been so distracted by the latest season of Love Island that you didn't even notice. And let's be honest, it's easy to get complacent. We live in a world of instant gratification, where we expect everything to be delivered to our doorstep with the click of a button. So when the government slowly starts taking away our freedoms, it's tempting to just shrug our shoulders and say, well, at least I still have my high-speed internet. Section 8, beyond the ballot box. So what's the solution? Well, it's not as simple as just voting for a different candidate every few years. We need to think bigger, bolder, and frankly, a little weirder. We need to start questioning everything. We need to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations. And most importantly, we need to be willing to stand up for what we believe in, even when it's not popular. Because here's the thing. Democracy isn't just about voting. It's about active participation. It's about holding our leaders accountable. And it's about being engaged citizens who are willing to fight for our freedoms. Section 9, charting a different course. Now, I'm not a political scientist. I'm just a guy who spends an unhealthy amount of time reading the news and yelling at the television. But I do know this. We can't keep doing the same things over and over again and expect different results. That's the definition of insanity. And frankly, I think we've had enough insanity for 1 century. It's time to start exploring alternative systems of governance, systems that prioritize individual liberty, limit the power of the state, and encourage citizen participation. We need to think outside the ballot box. We need to experiment. We need to be willing to fail, because if we're not careful, the only thing we'll be voting on in the future is what color jumpsuit we want to wear in our government-assigned housing. Section 10. Safeguarding liberty's flame. Look, I get it. Thinking about the future can be scary, but it can also be incredibly exciting because the future is not predetermined. We get to decide what it looks like. So let's not squander this opportunity. Let's not let the flame of liberty flicker and die. Let's fan the flames. Let's build a bonfire so bright it illuminates the path towards a freer, more just, and more democratic future. It won't be easy, but hey, nothing worth fighting for ever is.
So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and let's turn the page on a new adventure together. Get ready to experience books like never before, only on VBook 360. Like, comment, and share to support the channel and keep the video magic alive. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, Every video has a story, and every story deserves to be shared. See you in the next video.